Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Barnett. I am SVP for Pegasus Technology Solutions, and I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar on VDI Security and VDI Rapid Deployment. I'll be your moderator for today, and I have with me three great partners in HPE, Nutanix, and Cyxtera. Representing each of these companies today, we have Scott Olson, who's Enterprise Account Manager and Technologist with HPE. We have Huzu Saifi, who's a Frame and VDI Specialist with Nutanix. And then we have Ben Green, who's Manager of Sales Engineering with Cyxtera. So together, these four companies offer a VDI environment that is secure and can be rapidly deployed, can scale very quickly, and can be fully managed. So more on that in a minute. First, I want to give you a few housekeeping items. Excuse me. So today you can ask questions with a Q&A function that you're going to find at the bottom of your screen. So we'll take those questions throughout the presentations, and then we'll answer those at the very end. Excuse me. In addition, any questions that aren't addressed during the presentation will be answered via email later. There will also be follow-up emails for everyone that wants a deeper dive with any of the teams that are on these presentations today. And then we'll also have separate email for gift cards to welcome everyone for attending the webinar. Excuse me. So now more about Pegasus. I want to talk about who we are. So Pegasus, our vision is as an enterprise IT experiences for every company. We spent years working within the Fortune 500, solving business challenges through technology. We take that experience and we apply it to everything that we do. In our mission and our approach, you'll see how much we value people and relationships by our actions.
That's it.
We're great listeners, and we have to be to really learn and understand.
I don't really have to get beyond it, but I'm on it 5 to 6. I'm gonna get off though.
Scott, I think you're not. Can you mute your phone, please? I think we're hearing you through the screen. Sorry about that. So, we want to really learn and understand your business challenges. And if we listen, we do a good job of that. That enables us to design and deliver technology solutions that work the way you expect them to. And your users will see that and appreciate the elevated experience you're providing them. So if you look at our awards today, we're very grateful that our approach and our culture has been recognized through these industry awards. We're a 2-time CRN Triple Crown winner. And this year, we've made CRN's MSP 500 list for the 4th year in a row. And we've also been recognized in the Security 100 for the 2nd year in a row. So I've talked to you a little bit about who we are and our mission and our vision, our approach. And you've seen some of the recognitions that we've received. There are also significant differences in our managed services. So over time, we've built a process of technology success, and we utilize tools and have put teams in place to deliver managed services that are more than just break fix. So we have your typical managed services, right? Like 24/7 help desk, monitoring and management, data backups and disaster recovery, et cetera. But in addition to that, we help you proactively evolve your technology. And we do that through our process of technology success. And what that means is you're going to have a technology alignment manager assigned to you who proactively and continuously assesses your environment. What he does is he'll compare your environment to a standards library that we've developed over time through just our Fortune 500 experience. And when he finds places that where you're out of alignment, what we'll do is he'll work with our virtual CIO that's also assigned to your team. And that virtual CIO, in conjunction with the technology alignment, will show you the business impact of where you're out of alignment. And then through that, we'll build a strategic IT roadmap with you. And in that process, we develop over time a technology environment that completely fits your business needs exactly the way you want it to. So that's Pegasus. Managed services and technology solutions is how we fit into the discussion today. We can design your VDI environment to fit your needs today and manage it for you, and then help you continuously evolve it over time. So why are we talking about VDI today? Well, as everybody knows, COVID-19 and work from home programs have really changed the complex of businesses and how they operate. And it's really created an unprecedented demand for VDI today. And really with that, the challenges of VDI are even more prevalent. So typically in a VDI environment, not typically, but in a lot of cases, you're going to see deployments where user experience is very poor, slow user experiences. You'll see unpredictable availability and security, particularly around things like malware and ransomware. You'll see long deployment cycles in initial pilots. Plus, if you want to make any changes to that environment, you'll see long change processes as well. And then finally, you'll see significant overhead. We've got very high upfront costs. It takes a long time to put these things together, and then managing that infrastructure over time is very costly as well. And then finally, if you want to scale that environment, doing anything to scale that environment takes time and takes significant costs and unpredictable costs. And that's what we're trying to help you with in what we're doing with these three companies today in Pegasus. So hopefully that sets the stage for the next three presentations. We're really going to dig into the nuts and bolts of this environment. And we're going to start that off again with Scott Olson, who's Enterprise Account Manager and Technologist with HPE. And Scott's going to be presenting HPE ProLiant DX for Nutanix. Scott, you there?
I am here and I'm sharing screen now. I hope. You guys see my screen?
Yeah, we got it.
Awesome. Thanks. Hey team, Scott Olson, HPE. I'm an enterprise account manager. Greg George is the enterprise account manager who's on the call with me. He's going to be fielding any questions that we put in the chat until I'm done, then I'll come back and look at them. But I am a enterprise architect, which means I'm a jack of all trades across everything, except my master ability is in the ProLiant or IS service. So please feel free to use the chat room, ask any questions. If Greg George can answer them, he will. Otherwise, I'll revisit them after I'm done. I've only got a handful of slides and I won't be long. All right. Oh, there we go. So it's about, what I'm going to be talking about is HPE and the Nutanix relationship. A little over a year ago, HPE signed a global agreement with HPE and HPE Nutanix to deliver hybrid cloud as a service. This offer is going to leverage Nutanix Enterprise Cloud OS, which can include its built-in free Acropolis hypervisor, along with HPE's best-in-class ProLiant server. Together, these will dramatically lower the cost of ownership and accelerate your time to market across a wide range of applications. These applications can include things such as mission-critical workloads and big data applications, virtualized tier 1 workloads such as SAP, Oracle, and Microsoft, just to mention some, as well as support for virtualized big data applications such as Splunk and Hadoop. And by shifting to a IT as a service model, HPE Nutanix Cyxtera provides 40% increased productivity by reducing the support load on your IT staff, as well as the time to deploy IT projects by 65%. Obviously, you can take those resources then and use those in other areas to create more business-related projects that can help you increase your product to market. So why? Obviously, I'm selling hardware as well as other things, but HPE still believes servers matter. There's a lot of things out there that they're devaluing the servers, but HP still believes that servers are important. And I'm going to cover several of the things that HP has done to make these servers matter. Now, I'm not going to go out and bash a bunch of the competition, but what you can take away from this is that pretty much everything I'm going to talk about here is unique to HPE and where we're adding value. First and foremost, we're going to be running Nutanix on the world's most secure industry standard servers. I say that with a lot of confidence. I can prove it. I can take any FUD and dispel it. So I welcome anything there. It's based a lot on our Silicon Root of Trust within the ILO 5. ILO 5 is HPE's management engine. Not going to go into details on that, but I am going to talk about some features that come along with it. All of HPE's Gen 10 Pro lines come with the Silicon Root of Service, providing industry-leading protection against firmware corruption. Excuse me. It's a zero trust model. We never trust anything. We're continuously verifying, and we're automatically responding. It continually scans the firmware at runtime for malware. Some other competitive models have the ability to do that, not with Silicon Root of Trust, but with Root of Trust, and only at boot time. The other things that you won't see from competition is the ability to restore. We can do that as well. We can, once we detect, resolve, part of the resolution process can be restoring known good firmware back to the server so that you don't have to deal with that whole process. It can all be automatic. This has been tested and proven. I don't know if you're aware, but 11 seconds is the prediction for 2021 on how often ransomware attacks are going to happen. It's every 11 seconds. And if you're not protected, you're going to be one of those that's getting hit as part of those 11 seconds. Now, Marsh is the leading cyber risk firm. And they've come out with a cyber catalyst designation. HPE is the only server in the world that has that cyber catalyst designation. And what does that mean for you? It means you could most likely expect to see enhanced terms for your cyber insurance through this Marsh customer catalyst or cyber catalyst program. They've actually gone as far as issuing a statement saying, arguably a close to perfect solution. Security that is baked in the bare metal hardware level is the standard that security risk management professionals should strive for, and it's absolutely true. You'll hear other competitors talk about root of trust, but nobody does it down in the silicon level like HPE. We've actually had other independent companies go out and check to see if they can penetrate ours and competitive servers, and ours is the only one that could not be hacked. I would take it as far as saying if protection was any stronger, it would be considered a cyber weapon, and it would only be able to be used within certain facilities within the U.S. Although we have many U.S. and three-letter acronym government agencies using it and actually dictating some of the security levels that are here. The other thing is many people have said, many analysts have said, we, HPE, are 2 generations ahead of competition. And what does that mean? Sure, somebody eventually is going to copy us and duplicate what we've done, but they're still going to be 2 generations ahead because we're going to be innovating for the next attacks or the next big thing while they're just trying to catch up. I mentioned compliance. We do follow the NIST Foundation. We are FIPS and DFARS compliant for those that have to have the compliancy with any government regulated agencies. You may need this. Not everybody has it. We've gone as far as securing the supply chain, not just the server, but the point is protect from the inside out. So start with the server, build it like Fort Knox, build it rock solid, and then build anything outside that touches it. For example, the whole supply chain and shipping process. Own as much of that as you can, and what you don't have, audit and regulate it. We have the ability to build servers that are sourced completely in the USA. We do have some government agencies that require that. So the servers are built completely in our facility up in Wisconsin. And we've had people gone as far as saying they want them escorted with guarded, armed guards to have that delivered from there. Now, knowing that, we've taken it a little bit further, and we have the ability to actually sell something that allows you to guarantee that when the server is done manufacturing, from the day it leaves our door, we guarantee it won't be touched or manipulated by the time you open it up and put it in your rack, because of the instrumentation we've put into it. And the fact that we're building it here in the US as well, we're going to minimize the needs for that. It does things like authenticate parts, make sure that they're HP authentic parts and what we put in the beginning. We turn off the debug interfaces so that no one can go in there and start debugging / programming some of the firmware that's in there. We have intrusion detection on all of our chassis, so if somebody were to open up, we'd know that. We do fingerprints on what the servers are built like, so if someone were to come in and say change a memory DIMM or any other component, that will alarm you, and we'll either recover it to a known good state, or just leave the server down until you figure out what you've done want to do with it. Oh, I see I didn't switch slides, I'm sorry. I did mention that the HP NIST compliant and the foundation framework, and also the FIPS compliance and DFARS, or the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement. Sorry about that, not moving the slides. InfoSight. InfoSight comes along with our Nimble acquisition a couple years ago. Nimble is a rock solid storage platform, but to be honest, the crown we were looking to buy was the InfoSight. And InfoSight is a AI-driven, cloud-based platform where we're gathering data from everybody's individual platform. It started with Nimble. It is now going across all the other HPE environment, including our servers, in this case, the DX and or the DL servers. That was actually the first. It's based on the fact that this is going to enable self-managing, self-healing, and self-optimization. When I say the self-healing and optimization part, we actually have stats that show 80% of all problems are solved before the customer even knows they're a problem. And we can do this because we have this large pool of data that is not just yours, the customers, but everybody around the world. And we can see if, in fact, I'm making this up, but let's say a customer in China had a same exact server, very similar fingerprint, and was running very similar software stack, and they upgraded to a let's just say a different driver for a specific thing, and that thing brought their system down. We discover once and inform many so that they don't see the same mistake. Having said that, we will blacklist the ability to update that particular driver even for your service, because we know it's going to be a problem. So again, proactively, we're solving things up in front before they actually happen. How do we do this? Well, InfoSight has a large pool of data. We've probably got 10 years of Nimble data. We're collecting more and more ProLiant data. One good thing about the ProLiant is it has an active health system log in it, which keeps information on birth certificate to death certificate. So as soon as we load that up to our cloud, we now add that much more data for that server, and we now start doing the analytics on the worldwide population of it. First of all, we observe what's going on in the environment. And we learn from that observation and combine those observations from their environment along with the observations of other people who are deploying similar capabilities. Then we do some predicting based on that telemetry data. And based on that prediction, we recommend changes to your environment, and or we act on it and block the ability to do certain things, or tell you before you do this, upgrade to this, that type of thing. And of those 86% that we predict and prevent, the following 14%, many of those are not even hardware problems. They turn out to be, switches or VMware noisy neighbors or something along. We have the ability to do cross-stack analytics and figure that out. So we're way ahead. We've got 10 years of data on our competition. Are they going to be doing this? You're absolutely right. Everybody in the industry is going to be doing it, but we've got the lead, and we'll be having the best analytics for a long time to come. Service and compatibility. So this agreement between HP and Nutanix is basically going to allow us to have that working relationship where we'll have joint ownership of the call. Likely you're going to call one or the other, but we'll do soft transfers. We'll figure out whether, for example, whether it's a hardware or software problem, and then we'll do the soft transfer between companies. But we've got both companies support to make sure that the ball doesn't get dropped and that you're handled very efficiently. Part of the sweet spot in Nutanix is their lifecycle management. It's a user experience in what Nutanix calls Prism. They have a one-click firmware update, which makes it so easy and so painless, and is going to free up a lot of your admin's time. In any three-tier architecture, maintenance upgrade is always a pain, particularly with multiple vendors. Typically the admin is going to have to do many things to perform it. He's going to have to go out to multiple vendors' websites, check hardware versus firmware versus hypervisor compatibility for all components, look at the BIOSes for the hardware, the HBA firmware and drivers and NIC firmware, the actual supported hypervisors, and if they're compatible with those other things. Same with fiber channel switches, so on and so on. And they're going to download all these necessary binaries, look at all dependencies, figure out what has to go on before what, and install one by one, and likely using many different screens. Not a single management console. But with Nutanix and Prism, they allow all this to happen with a single screen and a single click. The Nutanix Lifecycle Manager, Prism, brings this all together with a one-click, non-disruptive update. Again, I fell behind on my slides, clicking things and looking at a different screen. From a support perspective, HPE support, second to none. Hardware break fix, the standard's going to be 3 years. Next business day is warranty. That's the standard if you don't buy anything. Down at the bottom, if you see, we have uplifts available for 3, 4, 5 years, 24/7, 6-hour call to repair, meaning that we guarantee a operating system prompt after 6 hours after you called in. And then there's defective media retention. If you have sensitive data and you don't want to give it up, that's another option. What do we cover? We cover everything in the server that's HP branded. If for some reason there's a non-HP branded card in it that you're on your own with, obviously because we can't plan for that and we don't know about it. This is Nutanix centric in this case. We support all pre-approved Nutanix configurations, and we provide real-time tuning recommendations via the ILO Workload Advanced Performance Advisor and InfoSite. And that's pretty much all I have. I just want to point it out for this. It actually applies to what we're talking about right here, but it actually applies to all ProLiants. As part of the COVID-19 relief program that HP is doing, we've opened up our ILO Advanced free of charge for all customers and partners through the end of this year. So if you happen to have any ILO servers that aren't licensed for Advanced, feel free to follow this link, and you'll be able to download it free for the rest of this year. Now, if you have any questions, I'll go look in the chat. Otherwise, I'm passing it on to Next.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Really good stuff on the strength of the Nutanix and HPE partnership, plus the inherent security advantage of the HPE Gen 10 servers. That's awesome stuff. So next up, with Nutanix, we have Huzu Saifi, who's a Frame and VDI specialist, and he'll be presenting on Nutanix Frame. Huzu, you're up.
Hi, everyone. This is Huzu Saifi. I will be looking to share my screen. 1 second. Give me 1 second. I think it's Ring Central is asking me to disconnect and reconnect. Let me do that really quick. I'll be right back and go over the Frame environment.
Okay, thanks, Huzu. So I just want to remind everyone that's in the attendees here, we do have a Q&A function here at the bottom of the screen. If you want to click on that and ask a question, we'll get to those at the end of the presentation.
All right. I should be on now. Let me see if I can share my screen now. Perfect. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you, Huzu. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right. So excellent, guys. My name is Huzu Saifi. I'm here based out of Dallas, part of the Nutanix's Frame team. So I'm going to spend just a few minutes to talk to you guys about what the Frame technology is, the platform, and kind of how it's different from some of the other traditional VDI solutions that are out there in the market. And then just give you a quick peek into the platform itself as well. So Frame is essentially part of the Nutanix family. It was acquired in 2018 in August and added to the Nutanix family of products. VDI in general has been part of the Nutanix DNA for many years from the start. We have a number of customers that are doing Citrix deployments as well as VMware deployments of VDI on Nutanix Frame. We're a very close partner of Citrix, and to this day, we have a large number of customers utilizing that. Now, as the environment has evolved, a lot of customers are looking for a more simplified solution for their users, both from a user access perspective as well as a management perspective, and really looking at desktop as a service. So Frame is essentially that solution where the control plane or the management components are provided as a service. And the VMs themselves can reside in any of the 3 major clouds. So in a nutshell, Frame is a SaaS service. And like other SaaS services out there in the market, we're browser first. What that means is the idea is that the users only need a browser to connect to their virtual app and desktop. So we are optimized for Chrome and Firefox, but any standard HTML5 browser works. And in addition to that, like I said, there are 2 components. One is our Frame Remoting Protocol, which is our proprietary protocol. It's not based on RDP like a lot of the other traditional VDI solutions out there. It's actually called Frame Remoting Protocol. It's based on H.264. And that's the same codec, if many of you are aware, that is utilized by, say, Netflix and YouTube to deliver high definition video to us as consumers. So we're able to handle, very high graphics use cases really well. So that's the remoting protocol perspective. That's one element of what Frame provides. The other element, like I said, is the control plane. So with any VDI solution, customers need the ability to deploy their VMs on different infrastructures, manage it, have that gold image management, have be able to manage that profiles, be able to handle authentication, provisioning, all of that stuff. So that in traditional VDI, that's provided, installed either on premise, and those are infrastructure components that have to be maintained by the customer, and that it has to be upgraded at different intervals, etc. With Frame, that's provided as a service. So the only thing the customer has to worry about is the VMs that the users connect to, the actual VDI sessions, and those can be deployed on any of the three major cloud players, AWS, Azure, GCP, or on-premise on Nutanix Acropolis Hypervisor. So we are truly cloud agnostic in that perspective. Also, these VDI workloads do not run on AHV on these clouds. They're running natively on these cloud platforms. So what sets Frame apart from the rest of the environment or the rest of the VDI solutions that are out there in the market? I would say probably the biggest one we see is simplicity, right? So Frame is designed so that it's super easy to use and manage, both from the user perspective as well as the management perspective. It doesn't require extensive cloud knowledge or VDI knowledge to onboard your environment and manage it. We're seeing more and more that IT environments are made up of folks that are generalists, where they're wearing a number of different hats and responsible for a number of functions. So sometimes that luxury of having a dedicated VDI team is not there. And Frame is such a solution where it's something that a resource can learn or pick up very quickly and manage successfully. So our deployment is really in hours and days versus weeks and months compared to traditional VDI. One of the other things I mentioned was our protocol. So we handle high graphics and 3D workloads very well. So we are built on this next-gen remoting protocol to deliver these use cases. We're able to deliver AutoCAD, Revit, Photoshop kind of products really well. As a matter of fact, when Frame was in its early stages, before even Nutanix acquired them, some of the early customers were these software providers themselves. Adobe, for example, is one of Frame users, and they deliver their entire Autodesk University, that's both internal and external training, exclusive high graphic workloads. So also with regard to our platform, we are really a cloud-first platform with support for both multi and hybrid cloud. And when I mean cloud-first, what that means is our cloud platform was built from the ground up, from scratch for the cloud. It is not a lift and shift technology by some of the other traditional VDI solutions out there, where we didn't take existing legacy environments or legacy Windows workloads and just hosted them in the cloud and called it a cloud service, etc. Ours is truly a built-in cloud service. And what that does is it allows us to be really scalable and truly have that cloud integration with these other cloud providers and platforms. And because of that, we are very agile in the onboarding, very simple to use, and a truly multi-tenant solution. We have a number of customers that utilize Frame for their internal different lines of businesses or different internal customers themselves, and they want a multi-tenant environment. And with Frame, you can totally slice it and dice it how you see fit, where you can separate different cloud subscriptions, different authentication mechanisms at different levels, and truly have a multi-tenant environment. The other thing is that, like I mentioned, we support all the three major cloud players as well as HCI. And because of that, you're able to deploy geographically, globally, in any of these geographic locations, pretty much across the board, across AWS, Azure, and GCP. The only exceptions to that are some data centers in China. Outside of that, pretty much the rest of the geographic locations are wide open. Also, like I mentioned, we are a browser-first approach. So what that means is, like a SaaS application, we recommend that most customers utilize just the browser approach, meaning you can connect to your virtual app or desktop strictly through the browser without needing any other software, not even a plugin. That's the idea of SaaS applications. Now, if there are components which would not work with that, for example, we have support for some specific USB devices that will not work through just the native browser approach. We also have a Frame client application that's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux, which can be utilized that. But our approach is always browser first, which means we try to make all the functionality and feature work natively through the browser. And if that does not work, then we fall back to the client application for that additional functionality. But it really makes the browser approach kind of the first-class citizen versus like a second-class citizen in the traditional approach. So all in all, what Frame really allows you to do is basically choose your infrastructure, whether that's on-premise, on AHV, or on one of the 3 major clouds. Choose your authentication mechanism. Like I mentioned, we support SAML-based authentication. All the authentication goes from the user. None of that is held in our control plane. We just use SAML. In cloud, we provide you a base image, which you can deploy your application. So it really streamlines that process and speeds up the process of deployment. For on-premise on AHV, customers are able to import their own image. In addition, we have native integration to cloud storage solutions like OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive, and Box. And what I mean by that is you do not even need the agent deployed on the VM. We have native integrations that can be turned on or off to handle that. Outside of those 4, we handle a slew of other cloud storage solutions. Just that the client needs to be deployed on the VM. And again, with all of this, you can access this from any device, from any location, as long as it's like an HTML5 browser. Here's some of our reference customers that are out there. Like I mentioned, we have a lot of companies that do high graphics. In addition, we have a lot of, excuse me, government organizations as well that utilize our environment as well. And that's pretty much all I had from an overview perspective. What I did want to show you is just a quick 5-minute demo of Frame itself. So as you can see, I was presenting this presentation out of my Frame desktop. And the way you can see that is if you look at this bottom bar over here, this is called the Frame toolbar. And it's got some feedback that it provides the user. So me as a user, I'm here sitting in Dallas. And this VM is actually in AWS in Northern Virginia. But it shows my bandwidth, kind of like a cell phone signal bar. So that's really great for providing that user that feedback. It reduces tickets back to your help desk, because if they're in a location which doesn't have ideal Wi-Fi, say they're sitting in a Starbucks with not ideal Wi-Fi connection, it may show 1 or 2 bars, and it sends that signal back to the user that, hey, maybe you might not have the best connectivity back. It shows my round-trip latency. In addition, it shows my other stats, like how much bandwidth I'm using. When there's nothing going on the screen, it kind of dwindles down to almost nothing, like 1 kilobit just a heartbeat. Now, if I move stuff around, you'll see it'll move, it'll use bandwidth as needed and then collapse back down. In addition, if I click on this, you can see additional stats like how far the server is. This is like a server that the machine I'm connecting to is about 1,100 miles away. This is a server 2016 instance with a GPU. I wanted to show you some of the GPU capabilities of this. But we are a VDI solution. That means we are not multi-session. So that means every user connects to its own VM. So some of the things I want to show you is open up a browser, and I'll go to this web-based graphics demo tool, basically, which it's a sports car which I can manipulate and move around now, and it's doing rendering and lighting and shadowing and reflections on the fly. And as you can see, now you're seeing this over a Ring Central conference, so there may be some lag and it may be a little jumpy. But for me, natively, this is like using it locally on my machine while this VM is 1,100 miles away. And you'll see over here, it's going to use as much bandwidth as it needs to give me that full high graphics experience. And you can see we're going up to like 15, 20 megabits to give me that full experience. Now, similarly, for applications like Adobe Autodesk Inventor, I can take a 3D modeling application and move it around, and it's extremely fluid for me as I'm using this. I can zoom in and out. Now, that's great with high bandwidth, but I'm going to simulate what it's like if there is not ideal bandwidth. So if I throttle this down, I can limit my bandwidth to say I can even limit it down to just under a meg, right? And what you'll see is as I move the object around, there'll be more pixelation, but it's still extremely fluid. As I zoom in and out, I'm still able to manage this, and as I pause, the resolution gets back into that high resolution as it utilizes that bandwidth. Now, as you can see, also the bandwidth indicator bar shows 1 bar, so it provides that kind of feedback to the user. In addition, we have the ability to switch it to grayscale, so it gives back, it gets more higher resolution in lieu of color depth, which you're able to turn off. So especially important for our engineering use cases. There's a lot more that I can show. I just have wanted to give you a quick overview of Frame and this. If you are interested in this VDI solution, to talk about it in more detail from a user perspective or a management perspective, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to speak to you one-on-one in more detail. I think there are some questions also. Let me open those up.
Uzo, I can read them for you.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
got it. So I thought, I'm sorry, I can get to those, Rena. I thought we were going to get those at the end of the presentation. We can do
Okay,
it.
that's fine as well.
So let's, yeah, we're going to hold off on questions till the last bit, but we'll get to them here in a minute. Okay, thanks, Uzo. Appreciate the presentation. Good stuff. Next up, we have Ben Green with Cyxtera. Ben is manager in the sales engineering group of Cyxtera, and he's going to present on enterprise bare metal and the control of co-location, the agility of cloud.
Thanks, Steve. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Outstanding. So thanks everybody for hanging on. I know we're at the end of the day. I know I'm the third presentation, and I'll try to keep it short and sweet and to the point for everybody, right? But we've already heard from technologists at HPE. We just heard from Uzo at Nutanix, right? And we've talked a lot about really the platforms and the infrastructure and the software that power modern VDI solutions. I'm going to come at this from a bit of a different tack, right? Which is the actual data center. How do you go ahead and deploy this modern cutting edge stuff in these crazy days that we're in today, right? So quick refresher on Cyxtera, and some of you guys might not know who we are, but we are like a top 5 globally large co-location provider. We operate 62 data centers across 29 markets. So really across every continent, every large metropolitan area, we have data center assets. And if you don't know, we came to be about 3 years ago, and we came to be through the acquisition of CenturyLink's data center business. So this portfolio of data centers came with a lot of customers, and really we've spent the last 3 years trying to modernize this business, trying to bring it into really 2020, more cloud age, which is what we're going to talk about. So real quick before we dive into it, you really can't talk about data centers and you can't talk about applications anymore without talking about interconnectivity, right? How do you serve up these applications, these VDI desktops in a low latency, graceful end user relationship? And really the benefit of going to a data center like a Cyxtera facility is we have tons of eyeballs at our site, right? So across our 62 data centers, we have an average of 14 lit carriers per site, right? So for our clients, what that means is options and better prices, right? That's really what that means. We bill 40,000 interconnection cross-connects on a monthly basis. That's second only to Equinix. And what's really important when we talk about choice is we understand it's now a hybrid world, right? Nobody's just picking up their data center and throwing everything in our four walls, right? Clients are going out to the cloud where it makes sense, where it adds value to their business, where solutions like Nutanix Frame, right? They can consume that on demand. We want to make sure that our data centers are very well connected to these clouds. So as you can see here, basically from any of our sites, you're within 3 milliseconds of the closest cloud on-ramp. And what's more than that, we can get you diversity. So we can multi-path, multiple 10 gig up to 100 gig circuits directly to the cloud from our data center. So while we're on the topic of cloud, right? It's a new age, right? I think folks have matured a little bit. Just a little history. I'm not anti-cloud. I spent the last 10 years as a cloud architect. I'm a firm believer that applications will find their right platform naturally, right? We just want to make sure that we're providing the gateways and the access for clients to do that. So in regards to cloud, we saw this big wave of cloud first and cloud this and cloud that, and everything has to be cloud about 5 to 10 years ago. That has slowed down a little bit. And really the rationale for that is what you're looking at. But of all the respondents IDC hit up last year, 85% of CIOs said they are repatriating assets from the cloud. And the reasons for those are just what you would think, right? Folks want control, they want security, they want guaranteed performance, but really what we find to be a big one is cost, right? If you're sticking stuff up in the cloud and it's just burning 730 hours a month, 24/7, you're not optimizing that workload for the cloud. So if you do have steady state, we can declaratively say it's cheaper to run that on-prem. So as you're going through these analyses, where do I put these workloads? All these things are important, right? And you end up with this bifurcated world where clients are solving for these dedicated workloads by hosting them on private clouds in their data center, or going to a managed service provider and having them host a private cloud for them. And then we have clients on the other end of the spectrum that are just going straight to the cloud, right? And they're spinning up workloads. They can have a desktop image launched in a minute. That's a beautiful place. But if you can't live in that cloud world for whatever reason, regulatory, performance, control, cost, whatever it is, the real challenge for you is now, instead of 5 minutes to provision, to stand up a data center takes months, right? To get connectivity from outside carriers takes months, right? So this is the challenge that we walked into when we took over this business of Cyxtera, right? So what we've created is something we call Cyxtera Extensible Data Center, and it really bridges these two worlds, right? Of the single tenant data center plus the rapid provisioning, the frictionless kind of growth that the cloud has. So what is CXD? Right? We did what everybody does to make stuff faster, right? We automated with software there were once rigid people and process involved in deploying these dedicated data center environments. So effectively, across our data centers, we've deployed a network fabric. The best way to think about it is it's an SDN, right? And if you have assets in our data center, you have access to that SDN, and it basically allows you to plumb out your layer 2 networks and interconnect them to different assets. Right? So what's interesting is now we have a way to capture a client's layer 2 VLANs in our data center. What could we do to speed up the provisioning of their data center environment? Well, we could pre-allocate these data centers with dedicated HPE hardware, dedicated Nutanix hardware, dedicated Fujitsu hardware, dedicated NVIDIA hardware, so the clients can basically stretch out their VLANs and launch bare metal hosts directly into their network. And what that means is we take a 3 to 6 month deployment timeframe for a traditional colo, and we can do it in a single day. And once you're stood up, we can really expand on that within an hour. So this is a huge kind of trunking of that gap, right? And we really think it starts bringing this whole idea of single tenancy, running dedicated hardware in a data center, much closer to that cloud first economic methodology that all the CIOs are going after. So what is the power of this platform? Right? So some clients use this simply as an interconnectivity mechanism, right? So our fabric exists and it lives basically within a data center and across a metro area. So if you're in any of our sites, you can connect to yourself or another provider over the virtual fabric. Just think of it as a virtual meet me room. One of the challenges this solves for our clients is planning for contiguous space, right? So now we're effectively the core network for the data center. A client can deploy on any of our floors, between any buildings in a facility, and we will make them look like one cohesive, contiguous network. So I won't dive too deep there, but that really does solve a lot of challenges when entering a dedicated data center environment. Insofar as when you build a data center, you basically have to build 4 walls around how big you think you're going to be in 3 years or 5 years, right? So this removes some of that complexity around expansion and contiguous space. Additionally, on the network end, we're integrating multiple partners and multiple providers that are on net in our facility into our fabric. So again, what does this mean to you as a customer of Cyxtera? It means that you can provision dedicated network connections to the public cloud and to your traditional corporate endpoints directly through the fabric, right? So no waiting on LOA CFA in a meet me room and running layer 1 patch cables, right? We can instantly turn up virtual cross connects to these providers. And what's more, and this is what we've talked through already, but now that we have your networks captive in our fabric, again, we can launch Nutanix nodes, we can launch HPE nodes directly onto your network, right? So again, another real differentiator here, because I know that there's no shortage of providers trying to sell the modern enterprise, different ways to consume infrastructure. This is truly a different model than going to the public cloud or traditional hosting provider. And the reason I say that is we are 100% integrating towards the client. We are not interjecting any risk into a client environment, and we are not changing their mode of operations, right? They're literally presenting a VLAN to us, and we are putting bare metal compute on it for them to consume. So in terms of how do you scale out, how do you quickly add capacity to an existing data center, to an existing framework, this makes a very non-disruptive, easy way to scale and grow. And what's more is it's not just Cyxtera offering hardware and services on this fabric. All of these customers, and Cyxtera has 2,400 customers, are part of this ecosystem, right? So a great story there is we look at Zadara Storage, right? They provide on-net in our data center storage as a service. So really the best way to think about this, right, is we're throwing a bunch of Lego blocks on the ground and letting clients build whatever data center they want, right? So if you want to run a Nutanix HCI environment, you can just spin up 3 nodes. If you need to connect that back to an IBM AIX system and a Palo Alto firewall, you stick that stuff in a rack and you connect it together with the CXD fabric. If you need a place to park your backups, right, you could contract with Zadara and just mount NFS storage over the network and pay per SIP. Or, you could put your own backup array in your cabinet. The point being, we're giving clients ultimate option, right? This is a build your own data center model. We are not a service provider. We're not doing any logical support. That's where we really rely on our partners like Pegasus and Nutanix and their services arms. We're just an infrastructure play, right? And we're trying to give clients fast access to data centers, high-speed networks, clouds, as well as enterprise compute products. And this is really just an illustration of it, but to give you a sense of it, really, again, I said we integrate to the client. The way that we connect into a client environment is we drop 2 fibers down to their rack. It's basically a multi-services port. It's basically like an 802.1.q trunk. And the client can configure it as a layer 2 or layer 3 service. If they configure a layer 2 service, they literally map their networks out. They will select how many nodes from our pool they want to deploy. And when they activate, sorry, we missed a build. Basically, when they activate, we're integrating towards the client. They're not going to know if those racks or if those servers are in their rack or if they're sitting in our managed pool across the data center. And then finally, to kind of put a bow on this, we didn't just build this to build it in Flex on slides on a webinar, right? We actually save clients considerable amounts of money in this model, right? So if you think about it, I mean, on one side, it's just a pure consumption economics argument, right? Typically, when buyers go out to buy hardware, you buy with headroom. You buy for 6 months out, you buy for 12 months out of capacity. You don't have to do that here. We have captive capacity. Clients can basically consume hardware as they need it, right? So if you're rolling up from 100 users to 10,000 users on VDI, you don't have to start with a 10,000 user build, right? You can stair step it up. So we're happy to go through clients versus all the models, the buy, rent, own, and work through these TCOs. But I just want to say we 100% can save clients money as well as making them faster and better. And for this, I think you guys get it, right? But for on-demand to work, we have to have standardized really t-shirt sizes of hardware in the data center. So today, I know this is a Dallas-centric call. In our Dallas data center, we have both HPE and Nutanix hardware. This list right here only shows off the Nutanix hardware, but we have 5 different HPE nodes as well. Any of these nodes can be contracted on a 12, 24, or 36-month basis. We also do short-term contracts. We don't really do anything less than 3 months. But point being, this capacity is there today, guys. It's readily available. We can, literally within a week, I would say, you could have a full-fledged Nutanix VDI production instance stood up. And really the call to action on our end is we do have a joint program with Nutanix around VDI Fast Track, specifically around powering up some of these nodes that actually exist in Dallas. So again, we have existing inventory. We are running kind of discounted pricing on that inventory, and Nutanix has some services to wrap around it to enable clients to really build, launch, and operate these VDI environments. So I will pause there, Steve, and kick it back to you, but I'll be watching the QA bar.
Okay, great. Thanks. We actually do have a few questions. I'll start with, looks like we have one from, well, a couple of these have already been answered, but I think these are very good questions. So let's go ahead and I want to go ahead and, Huzu, I know you answered these on the Q&A, but I want to go ahead. I think these are good questions for everybody to hear, just in case they missed them here. The first one was, has Frame recently updated modernized their way of handling end user profiles?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we actually have an enterprise profile feature that can be enabled for both our domain joined or non-domain joined instances as well. And basically what that does is it stores the user settings in a separate virtual disk. When a user logs off and their non-persistent desktop goes away, those settings persist on a separate virtual disk. And when they reconnect back to another new non-persistent desktop, that virtual disk gets reattached and they're back in business. So we actually support that for both domain joined and non-domain joined instances, which also makes us very unique because we were able to also deliver non-domain joined VMs to users, which kind of sets us apart from a lot of the other VDI solutions out there.
Okay, cool. And I think you touched on the other one about also as domain join now fully released and supported feature.
Yeah, absolutely. So domain joins are fully supported across all our platforms, whether that's cloud or on-premise. Obviously, it requires your VDI desktops to be able to communicate with a domain controller. But the other part of that question was single sign-on. So if you're using another IDP, for example, the user will log on using that IDP, say Okta, Ping, or Azure AD, whatever that may be. But they log on, they get displayed an icon to launch their desktop. When they click on that, it'll launch their desktop, and then they'll be prompted for their domain join. So if you're looking for that single sign-on capability directly from your other IDP into your domain, that is something that is actively being worked on in the very near-term future. We'll have that, and it is pretty cool the way our development team is going about it, where it'll literally be something you just enable instead of deploying additional infrastructure to allow for that single sign-on, which is what we have to do for a lot of the traditional VDI solutions out there. So yeah, short answer is domain join, fully supported, single sign-on from IDP to domain join in the very near term.
Okay, we got a couple more. So so a couple more, it looks like, from the same person. So is Frame planning to integrate the ability for VDA as well, or is this already an offering?
So when I believe when you're saying VDA, that's a Citrix VDA. So at this point, there's no plans to tie Frame to be able to connect to a Citrix VDA, if that's, or if the other question is
accessing a desktop through the web was kind of the clarification. So.
Oh, a desktop PC too. Yeah, so right now, I don't believe we have anything on the immediate roadmap to be able to connect like physical PCs through that.
Okay. And then finally, one last question for for you, Huzu. It's where does the frame service run?
Yeah, so the great question. The frame service actually runs in AWS in East 1 region across 3 availability zones. And one thing to note here is that frame service that's provided, the management plane, is really just handles the metadata, the connectivity, and those kind of things. When the user connects directly to their VM, they're connecting directly to their VM. The session is not held through our control plane for performance reasons.
Okay, cool. And then Ben, I have a question for you as well. Question is, how do clients manage security and network access to VDI resources in a Cyxtera data center?
Yeah, I'll make that really easy. Exactly how you do today, right? So again, we're integrating at layer 2. We're just grabbing your networks that you stretch out. Your existing firewalls, SIM stack, security stack are still going to be the default gateway for those routes, right? So that's really a simplistic answer. If you're looking at kind of deploying into Cyxtera and more of a spoke model, right? So you have your hub data center somewhere else. Again, security is really the responsibility of the client. The way that we connect at the network level, I think, makes it easy to secure, but we can have a broader conversation around that. We're not, by default, injecting any routes or risk into a client network. So,
gotcha. Yeah. And yeah, and like you said, we can drill down on that if we need to with anybody specifically. Okay, cool. And then finally, Scott, I have a question for you as well. You mentioned that HP is making DX nodes for Nutanix. The question is, isn't that just a DL with DL SKUs for HPE?
It is. It's actually purely DL, no modifications with the possible exception of some BIOS performance settings, but it is a pure DL 380 with Nutanix loaded on it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that as well. Any more questions? If you have any additional questions, you can always just email the Pegasus team or any of the panelists that were here today on the webinar. But it looks like we've gotten to all of them. Just a couple more things. I want to reiterate that we will be reaching out to everyone who joined the call today with an email to see if you guys needed any other deep dives with any of the teams that were on the call today to discuss this VDI environment. And then we will also be sending out gift cards as an appreciation for you guys attending the call today. So really appreciate everybody coming on. Hope you enjoyed the presentation and what you heard here today. And we'll be hearing from you soon. So this ends the webinar. Thank you all for joining.